If the Atlanta Falcons' goal was to make some headlines in the NFL draft, they accomplished that by going with Michael Penix, quarterback out of Washington, in round 1 of the draft, specifically the 8th overall pick. So what I want to do on the video is I'll give you my grade of the pick, and then I want to run through Terry Fontenot and Raheem Morris, their explanation for the pick at the press conference afterwards, along with Arthur Blank's dumbfoundedness at the pick, and Kirk Cousins' reaction to the pick. But my grade is a D-. And I don't like that I gave Michael Penix such a low grade because I have been one of the biggest Michael Penix stands and truthers this entire pre-draft process, but just not for the Atlanta Falcons because of the whole $180 million quarterback thing you just signed. But I want to open up by talking about Raheem Morris and Terry Fontenot speaking to the media after the pick because something they said just didn't sit right with me when it came time for their explanation for going with Michael Penix at pick number 8. They said that they looked at what Green Bay did a couple of years ago with Jordan Love, and they hope to have the same success as the Packers. Here's the issue with that. The Packers didn't take Jordan Love top 10. They took him 26. So that if it didn't work out with Love, they didn't burn a top 10 pick on fire. And I'm not even convinced that if the Packers could go back in time and do it all over again, they would do it the same, knowing what they know now. Because they passed on a lot of really good players that could have helped an MVP Aaron Rodgers-led quarterback team like T. Higgins, for example, win them a Super Bowl. The Atlanta Falcons find themselves in a similar position right now where they just put all of their chips in Kirk Cousins to the tune of $180 million. And how do they respond with a top 10 draft pick, which they hope would be the last time they pick top 10 for years to come? They took a guy for 2026. It just doesn't make sense to me. And I like Penix as a player. And I hope he has a great NFL career. He's got the strongest arm, you could say, in this draft class, probably after Joe Milton. But he can make all the throws. He's one of the most aggressive quarterbacks. He has no issue throwing the football all across the field. There is a lot to like about Penix. I'm not even so upset about the pick because I don't like the player. I don't like Atlanta investing $180 million into a quarterback and then not using a top 10 draft pick to support their defense, which desperately needs help. This is not a deep edge rusher class. You're not going to find a guy in round 2 or 3, in my eyes, that's going to make a lot of big contributions to this defense. If you wanted Penix the whole time, why'd you sign Kirk? It's not like Penix is a developmental quarterback. He played 6 seasons of college football, which, by the way, if your goal was to sign a draft a backup, just in case Kirk Cousins is a little banged up and not 100% right from the Achilles injury, understandable. But don't pick the guy who tore his ACL twice and had 2 season-ending shoulder injuries at Indiana. That's the worst quarterback to get if that's your concern. If Penix was the guy that caught your eye from the beginning of this entire quarterback process, why not spend the $180 million on players like Danielle Hunter and Christian Wilkins? I feel like Terry Fontenot and the Falcons are going to look back at this and go, we might have screwed the pooch on this one. Because, sure, this may be a pick that looks good 4 or 5 years from now. And if that's the case, we're going to look back and we're going to laugh at me giving a D- grade. Because I think Penix does have the potential to be a really good starting quarterback in the NFL. I just didn't think it would be with the Atlanta Falcons. Which, by the way, is a bit ironic as I ask you guys to get your picks in right now for 2 reasons. One, my producer right now who volunteered to stay late with me is Patrick Seatman. He hosts our Vikings channel. He knows Kirk all too well, which means he probably knows that Kirk Cousins, who we'll talk about in a moment, got his start in the NFL kind of the exact same way Penix did. When Kirk Cousins was drafted by the Washington Redskins, he said of the 32 teams in the NFL, there was only one that he hoped did not draft him. the Washington Redskins, because they just took RG3. So he knew he had no chance to start. Penix finds himself giving the same feeling back to Kirk Cousins and is now in the Kirk Cousins cycle of all the teams that I was hoping would draft me, I would probably hope that Atlanta would not be one of them because I know I can't go there and compete for a starting job the first 2 years. So we're going to talk about Kirk Cousins' reaction to this, by the way, in just a moment, because Atlanta basically just gave him a big middle finger. But first, I do want to tell everyone watching about our sponsor today, which is Game Time. If you're looking to catch a Falcons game or concert or any other local sporting event in your area like a Braves game, download Game Time today and use code CHATSPORTS for $20 off your first purchase. Now, if you already forgot what I just said, I put all that information in the comments and description of today's video, but use that code CHAT Sports for $20 off. Game Time's going to have deals on tickets right up to the start of the event and even an hour after it kicks off. That way you don't miss out on any of the fun. So download Game Time today and use code CHATSPORTS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply, but once again, redeem code CHATSPORTS for $20 off. Let's get back to my D- grade for Penix, which I don't like that I am doing this because, if Michael Penix, this is his day, right? You get drafted once, and I'm sure it's got to be a real kick in the ass to get drafted by a team that the whole fan base is having, which, by the way, the Twitter space meltdowns were hysterical. That's got to be a shitty feeling. Can we all agree? You get drafted, and the whole city is upset that they picked you. So I wish Penix the best. I hope he's successful, and I think he can be a good starting quarterback for Atlanta. I just don't think it's going to be for 3 or 4 years. And I think that the next 2 to 3 years was your window to win. And when you pick top 10, you cannot miss. If you pick top 10, you're already on the hot seat because you were bad last year. If you're picking top 10 again, you're probably getting fired. Ask Arthur Smith that. Terry Fontenot, you're next, mister. I can't believe Arthur Blank, by the way, in the war room, had a face of what was that? The owner didn't even realize that was the pick that was being made. Terry Fontenot talking down Arthur Blank, I don't even know if he survives the weekend. It did not look like this was a decision with unilateral support. Raheem Morris, I'll tell you who did not make. I tell you who what. Bill Belichick would not have approved this draft pick. You may like the Raheem Morris hire, and I don't know how much responsibility and percentage to assign to Morris and Fontenot and Arthur Blank for this pick. But if Bill was running the show here in Atlanta, which, by the way, the biggest knock against Bill Belichick was he's going to want his hands on everything. Maybe that's not so bad after all. He wasn't a very good drafter. It's not a very good argument. But I for sure know that if Terry Fontenot suggested we should take that Michael Penix guy, Bill Belichick would have locked him in a small closet with no phones, no cell service, nothing, and gone Dallas Turner and probably improved this defense. Now, before we get on out of here, I do want to run through the top players remaining for day 2. Atlanta picks at 43, and now they need to find a starter because that's what they were supposed to do at 8. Drazan Johnny Newton's the man. That's the target. He should have gone round 1. He's your next Grady Jarrett. I don't think he falls to 43, but last year Atlanta traded up. They have 2 third-round picks. They can move up for someone like Kool-Aid McKinstry or Ladd McConkey or Cooper DeJean. There are some really good players available still that can cover up the round 1 mess that Terry Fontenot made. Go get a Newton, a Ladd McConkey, a Kool-Aid McKinstry, and that's going to smooth things over. Penix, I'm really sorry that the day you got drafted or the team that drafted you was met with such a horrible reaction, but I hope you can kind of understand that this is a fan base that's just seen 7 wins after 7 wins after 7 wins, and they were hoping to break that cycle. And Kirk Cousins definitely helped break the cycle, but then you turn around and use a top 10 pick on a non-starter, and yes, if Penix turns out to be a really good quarterback 4 or 5 years from now, we'll look back at this kind of like how people looked back at the Russell Wilson draft grade. But the difference is between that and Jordan Love, they weren't top 10 guys. That's what I go back to. If Green Bay missed on Jordan Love, teams miss on 26th, 27th picks very often. Teams don't miss on top 10 picks quite often. Same goes for Russell Wilson in round 3. If Seattle missed on Russ, boo-hoo. Just a third-round miss. One of many. But top 10, that's a different ballgame. All right, that will do it for us. Get some sleep. I'm very sorry that if you're waking up and you're watching this, you're praying this was all one big bad nightmare. It's not. Terry Fontenot has some explaining to do.